What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the spot where we kick back and react to all kind of different things. All right, so here we are with these crazy true stories again. Episode 2 of this. So got Mr. Ballin, and this one is Family Terrorized by Stalker, the story of the Watcher. This one sounds really creepy, so no, right? So check this out and see where this one goes. Last one was already weird, so doing this.
What's going on, guys? Mr. Ballin here, former Navy SEAL turned internet storyteller with a focus on the strange, dark, and mysterious.
Former Navy SEAL, huh? Okay, don't mess with Mr. Ballin. He can break you down.
And speaking of mysterious, today I have a mystery for you, and it's one of the more recent mysteries. It happened in 2014 and spanned a couple of years following that. It is a story that plays out like a psychological thriller, and in fact, Netflix recently purchased the rights to make a movie or show about this case from the family that were the victims of this case. The too long didn't read version of this story is you have this
That brings up interesting. Would you, if you went through a serious traumatic experience, would you sell the rest of the story? Because on one hand, make some money off of it. But on the other hand, your story has to be on television, and then there's a chance you'll run into it flicking through the channels one day. I don't know. But I don't blame anybody for making money off of it, especially if you survive something crazy. Tell your story.
All-American family that purchases their dream home. They're getting ready to move in, and they start receiving these awful, wrathful, threatening letters from some anonymous person or group. The letters get progressively worse and indicate that whoever is watching them very closely at all hours and is able to see things that are not easy to spot just from walking by. This is someone who is really intensely focused on the family. I think that the best way to watch this video and learn about this case, to really appreciate what this family went through, is to put yourself in the position of being the Broaddus family. That's the family that purchases the house. Imagine you're in their position. Would you have stayed or would you have left? And I'd love to hear about it in the comments section. So let's dive in. In June of 2014, Derek and Maria Broaddus purchased their dream home. It is a $1.3 million 6-bedroom house in Westfield, New Jersey, which is a very affluent northern New Jersey town. So the house they purchased was on Boulevard, that's the street name, and Boulevard within Westfield is, at the time, was like the street. If you lived on Boulevard, you had made it. I would say that times have changed, because now Boulevard is remembered as the place where this case happened, so I would say it's probably not the best place to live anymore.
So this is the case that ruined that area's reputation. Oh damn! If I was somebody who lived there and was not connected to this anyway, I'd be mad at the fact that my neighborhood with such a good reputation was ruined behind this. I'm just saying.
But at the time, it was like Derek and Maria were living their dreams and they knew it. 3 days after the sale of the house, they hadn't moved in yet. Derek had gone to the house to do some painting of the walls and some simple house renovations. I think he was just so excited about this house. He just wanted to go over and just kind of be in the space. So his wife and his kids are back at their old house that they had sold but hadn't moved out of yet. And so he's at the new house and he's doing these simple renovations, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna check the mail. Because even though they'd only owned the house for 3 days, he was like, you know what the heck, see what it feels like to go collect the mail, because this is gonna be my new home. And so he goes out and he opens the mailbox, and inside is this little tiny card-shaped envelope addressed to the new owners.
Dearest new neighbor at 657 Boulevard, allow me to welcome you to the neighborhood. 657 Boulevard has been the subject of my family for decades now, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. My grandfather watched the house in the 1920s, and my father watched in the 1960s. It is now my time. Do you know the history of the house? Do you know what lies within the walls of 657 Boulevard? Why are you here? I'll find out.
Very disturbing news out of Vernon Central High School.
What's going on?
The letter goes on to.
Okay. At that point, I'm looking at, I'm calling the people talking about, hey, can I get my money back? I don't want this house anymore. I don't want this house anymore. I don't give a damn if it was some little kid pranking me. There's too much crazy stuff going on. The letter like that, and I know that they gave it like the muffled voice to make it sound creepy, but even if I just read it like how I talk right now, that's still too creepy for me. All right, no, I'd be like, again, honey, now we have to purchase a different house, or we're gonna live in a hotel. I know we sold our old house, so you know that deal's already done. So we need to live in a hotel or something till we find another house, because we ain't living here. Now after this, no. The fact that they stayed after that, wow.
To identify what kind of car they were driving. It was a Honda minivan.
Wait, hold on.
Say how many contractors were in and out. The letter goes on to identify what kind of car they were driving. It was a Honda minivan. It went on to say how many contractors were in and around the house over the past couple of days that were doing some renovations on the house. It even said that, I believe I've counted that you have 3 children. Someday I will learn their names and I will call to them and I will take them from you.
What? Yeah, I'm out. We're done. We're done. I'm no longer have that house. I'm getting my $3 million whatever back, and we're done. And what just happened to my light? Was it tripping? Ugh. Excuse me, technical difficulties. But yeah, we're done. There's no. You're really watching me at this point. You got too much information. No, we're out.
It's like this. It's like a reconnaissance of his family had already begun as soon as they moved in, and so Derek is reading through this letter, and he's realizing that whoever is sending this is not a friendly neighbor at this point. This is someone who is out to harm them in some way. So he takes the letter, he runs back into the house, shuts all the windows, locks all the doors, leaves the house and goes right back to his wife and his kids that are at their old home. And they promptly call the police. Police show up, they read the letter, and they're like, what is this? Do you have enemies? Who wrote you this? Because even the language inside the letter was like, it was not quite Old English, but close. It was like this bizarre writing, and it was just very stalkerish and awful, and the police just don't really know what to make of it. And Derek and Maria are obviously very upset. They haven't even moved into the house yet, but this is a big cause for concern. So the letter did not have a return address.
Obviously.
But at the end of the letter, it just said,
Who am I? I could be someone that's walking by your house every day. I could be someone driving by your house every day. I could be one of your neighbors. I could be anybody that you see at any given day, and you'll never know.
And then it just says, signed, The Watcher. After the police leave that night and promise to launch their own investigation, Derek and Maria, they're totally on edge, and so they write an email, even though it's super late, to the Woods family. They're the family that sold the house to Derek and Maria. And they say, hey, we just got this strange threatening letter. Have you received anything like this? Because the Watcher claims to have been watching you for the entire time you were there. And the Woods family writes back and they say, 3 days, I think it was 3 days before we actually left the house, we did receive a letter. It wasn't threatening. It was just thanking us for our time in the house and treating it with respect, and that it would be taken care of going forward, and that this person would look after the house for us, and it was signed The Watcher. But to be honest, we didn't think much of it. We crumpled it up and threw it away. So the Broadduses decide that they're not going to rush to actually move.
I'm moving, and somebody sends me a letter that's it's basically, even nicer than that, it's basically giving the notion that it's their house and not mine. That's creepy. I'm reporting that. That's not. And I'll take care of it for you. Thank you for your time there. Like, he's talking like he owns the house. That's what he's saying. Like, he owns the house and he's gonna pass judgment on whoever lives there. It's almost like he's saying, the only reason I didn't kill you is because you did a good job at the house. That's basically what he's saying right there. That is insane. No. What do you mean, crumble it up and threw it away? Like, how do you ignore something like that?
Move into the new house. They had thought about doing it, but they decide with this letter that maybe it's best to hold off a little bit. And so Derek and Maria would do day trips with the kids. They'd go to a day trip, do some renovations, make sure that the contractors that were there were doing a good job getting the house in order, and then they would come back to the house that they were still living in. About 2 weeks after that letter was found, Maria is there with the kids, and she gets to the new house, and she sees there's a letter from the watcher, the same envelope, same writing on the outside, and so she immediately calls the police even before she reads it. She opens it up, and it says,
Welcome again to your new home at 657 Boulevard. The workers have been busy, and I have been watching you unload carfuls of your personal belongings. The dumpster is a nice touch. Have they found what's in the walls yet? In time, they will.
The watcher goes on to identify...
What? But see, here's the thing. How did they get to the point where, oh, they're moving stuff in now? Like, you guys are not listening. You guys are not paying it. Like at this point, I no longer have sympathy for the family. No matter where this story goes at this point, I no longer have sympathy for them, because on the first letter, I'd have been done. The fact that they got the first letter, they talked to the original owners and found out there was a previous letter. To get to the point to where y'all received a new letter means you guys are thick-headed. You are not paying attention or not showing enough concern. Like, you're worried, but you only shouldn't know. I'd be gone. I wouldn't be worried. I'd be gone. I'd be living life in a new house somewhere else.
Each of their kids by nickname and by birth order, which implies that whoever this was close enough to Maria or to Derek when they were speaking directly to their kids using their
nicknames and their birth order. So now that means that you've gotten close enough to actually be in conversation to know what my kids' nicknames are. No.
Nicknames that they overheard. Because it's one thing to know the children's full names, because it's possible that you could have looked it up online or something, but to know their nicknames, that implies a level of proximity.
Exactly.
Even though
you had to be within earshot of them.
In the neighborhood, almost definitely. This meant they were practically on top of one another. And it gets creepier. The watcher also in this letter asks, about one of the children and says, is she going to be an artist? I saw her using her easel yesterday. Well, the easel that this girl had
inside the house,
is a back room of the house that is mostly obscured by trees and shrubbery. There's really only one vantage point where you could see this child, and it would mean you're right on the property, like pretty much in plain view of anybody there. And with Maria and Derek and basically everyone on high alert looking for this person, it seems odd that they could be able to see this girl working at her easel in this kind of hidden back room and not be spotted.
Cameras. He was watching the other people. I'm betting cameras. He was watching the previous family the entire time they were there. No one has actually seen him approach anything or even anything like all you're getting is the letters. That's the only indication you even know the guy exists is from these letters. And he's giving you details about stuff that he would have to be like almost in your house in order to see. You'd have to be able to see him. I'm betting cameras. I'm betting he installed hidden cameras a long time ago. Because he mentioned, did they find what's in the walls yet? The first thing you think is like, oh, maybe there's a body in there. But that brings a stench after a while. What if that's camera wiring? Like he's got the entire house wired and he's watching everything they do. That's my guess. Let's see what this is. Let's see what happens.
Of course, to kind of seal the deal, making this letter just totally terrifying, they go on to say,
do your kids go in the basement? I'd be afraid if I were them. It's far away from the rest of the house, and if you were upstairs, you would never hear them scream. Who has the bedrooms facing the street? I'll know as soon as you move in. Then I can plan better.
So at this point, Derek and Maria are in full crisis mode, because it's one thing to be watched, which is bad. It's another when the person watching you is now overtly threatening your family, your kids. It's a bad situation.
But he already threatened them. One day I'll take them from you. That was a threat enough. That was from the earlier letter. So, again, you guys are not paying attention. I can't feel sorry for the family in question at this point because they're continuing to live there despite already knowing that there's somebody watching and threatening them. They had, I'm sorry, from the time he was first looking at the house, I'm sure that he had ample time to try and get his money back, or about as much as he can back, and then invest it in buying another house somewhere else. It's like they're not listening. Like, if this would have happened after they had been there for a few months, that's different. But right out the gate, y'all knew y'all had a stalker before y'all even got your furniture in there. Come on now.
And so Derek and Maria, at this point, they don't know if they're even ever going to move into this new house. It felt unsafe. And so for a few weeks, they're kind of teetering on whether it's worth moving in or not. And so that they aren't.
What do you mean a few weeks?
The new house at all. And a third letter arrives basically saying, "Where are you? The house misses you," obviously from the watcher. At one point between the first letter and third letter, Derek was speaking with John Schmidt, who lived 2 doors down from their new property on Boulevard. And John was saying that Derek ought to look into the Langfords. It was a family that lived right next to their new house, kind of a little bit of a strange family. It was a 90-something-year-old mother and her adult children who lived with her, who were all in their 60s. And one of the children, Michael, he was just known in the area about being a little bit odd. Like, he would just kind of creep out other people. It wasn't uncommon to have him like walk across people's property, you know, like little things like that, like looking in windows, just giving the vibe that he was a little bit strange and people didn't really like being around him. So Derek brings it up to the police that, hey, you should look.
Yeah, red flag right there. And I'm sorry, I don't care how nice of a neighborhood we're supposed to be or how rich of a neighborhood we're supposed to be. Don't be creeping up on my property, man. No. I'm not saying what I do because I'm on camera, but trust me, you're not going to want to just be creeping around my property. No, that's not going to fly with me.
Look into Michael Langford. He lives right near us. Neighbors are saying he's a little bit off. The police were like, actually, he was the first person we talked to. We brought him in. We questioned him. He denied it. We have no evidence tying him to it, and we just don't think it's him. And then later on in the investigation, they would actually do a DNA sample from one of the letters, and they would find out that it was a woman's DNA. And so that effectively ruled out Michael Langford, but
or
the Langfords had
the weirdo sister, maybe.
And so they decided maybe it could be her. And so they actually got a water bottle from her that they found, and they tested that, and it wasn't a match. So the Langfords were ruled out. Derek is growing increasingly more paranoid and angry. You know, he went from being, you know, scared of what was potentially going to happen to feeling like, how dare you threaten my family, my kids? And he started telling the police, like, if you don't find who's doing it.
I'm sorry.
Hey, do you ever walk into a room and completely forget why you're there?
I'm going to figure out.
I'm sorry, but how do you don't even have the right to be mad. Be mad at yourself. Be mad at yourself. You've had all opportunity to walk away from this whole situation. Dude's obsessed with the house, not with you guys. It'd be different if he was stalking you wherever you moved, but he's focused on that property, whoever this person is. So, or a woman's DNA, so she's focused on that property, whoever it is. I wouldn't be in that property. No. Come on.
Who it is. And then you're not going to be dealing with a stalking case. You're going to be dealing with a different kind of case, if you catch my drift. And so the police were like, don't do anything crazy. We're working as hard as we can. It's just there's not much to go on here. Derek wasn't okay with that. He set up this elaborate camera system in and around his house, the new house. He started staying at the new house, turning off all the lights and crouching behind windows and staring at the mailbox in hopes of being able to confront anybody who went near it.
Okay, now he's being an idiot. Now he's letting ego get involved. Just like, oh, I pay. I know what he's thinking. He's thinking in his head at this point. I bought this house. This is my house. Nobody's going to run me out of my house. Dude. Pick your battles better, man. Pick your battles better.
He ended up hiring 2 former FBI agents to launch his own private investigation. He hired a handwriting expert to analyze the letters themselves to see if they could pick up details about who this was and potentially profile them. And this person, all they could conclude was it was someone who was really, really mad. But all those things really didn't lead to any results. You know, it was just Derek had become obsessed, and he was willing to basically do anything to find out who the heck is writing these letters. So at this point, the Broadduses had already sold their old house. They were still living in it because they hadn't moved into the new house, the house being watched. But at some point, the new owners of the house they sold were ready to move in. And so the Broadduses had to move in with Maria's family, but were still paying the mortgage on 657 Boulevard. At this point, the
Okay, now y'all just being dumb. I mean, like, unless they, like I said, they probably waited too long. They probably waited too long and couldn't get their money back. I'd have been out from jump. I'd have got my money back. I don't know. But at this point, you're living in a different house because you're scared to live there, but you're still paying the mortgage on it and everything. But the thing is, they're not even trying to get out of the house or get out of, owning the house anymore. Because, like I said, dude's becoming obsessed with trying to find the dude. He's turning this into a competition at this point. And that's not a good idea, man. Dude already had pretty much plenty of mileage ahead of you in this entire situation.
The community started kind of spreading rumors about the Broaddus family. People believed that the reason they weren't moving into this beautiful new home was, they were getting a divorce, or they had some legal problems. The letters and what was going on with these letters, that was not widely known. There was speculation about it, but no one really knew for sure. So Derek and Maria kind of gradually became pariahs, and they ultimately decided that they're just going to sell this new house they purchased, because they need the money. They've tied up a lot of money in it, and they feel like, we'll sell the house and we'll move on. But by the time they listed it, enough rumors were circulating about the weirdness around that house and why no one was moving into it, and the weirdness with Derek and Maria, that nobody wanted to buy. And so they initially list this property above what they paid, because they had put $100,000 into the house in renovations. They just kept doing renovations, and that was their way of justifying not moving in. They were like, we'll keep fixing it up, it'll be better once we move in. But so they put $100K in, and no one bid. They lower the price, no one bid. They continued to lower the price to where it was like a full-blown deficit. Still, no one made an offer, so it sat vacant. At this point, Maria and Derek turned their frustration towards the previous owners, because, as I mentioned earlier, they had received a letter from the Watcher. Granted, it was, at the very end of their stay in this house, but it was before they gave over the keys to the Broaddus family. And Derek and Maria felt like the fact that they got an anonymous letter that was literally signed the Watcher, that name alone was kind of ominous enough that they felt like the Woods family should have disclosed that to the Broaddus family before they moved in. And so they filed a legal complaint against the Woods family, basically saying that you held information that potentially would have kept us from moving in and not having this problem. Well, Derek and Maria were assured by their legal team that at most, a small legal newswire might pick up this lawsuit, and that would be it. But the story, it got picked up by a number of outlets. The fact that they were filing a complaint against the previous owners over
Oh yeah, because at this point it's already like
they were all over the news. The Broaddus family had
the House of Horrors
media requests. There were TV stations and news stations camped out on the front lawn. Everybody wanted to know what's going on with this bizarre, Watcher. It became this huge thing, and so for Derek and Maria and their family, they had to vacate Westfield because it was basically not only unsafe because they were being watched by this phantom menace, but now they couldn't escape the media pressure and all the speculation from their nosy neighbors. It was just a total train wreck. Finally, the Broaddus family got some good news. Literally years after this first letter is sent and they tied up all their money in this new house, a family agrees to rent the house. Now, this is going to be at a loss for the Broaddus family. The rent money will not even cover the mortgage, but to them who've just been sitting on this worthless property that's just been eating away at their finances, this was a huge win. The Broaddus family, they put into the contract with this new family that, hey, you know what's going on here with the Watcher. If you get another letter, you're able to renege on this contract. And so the new family moves in, and 2 weeks into being there, what do you think happens?
Get a letter.
Another letter shows up.
You wonder who the...
Oh, before we even listen to the letter, I just gotta say, we just got a lineup of idiots here, because now we got a family who's saying, I know about the whole situation. I'll rent it. No. It's like it's like, yeah, you know about the situation, and it's even in your contract that if the Watcher comes after you, you can renege on the whole thing. It's like, sure, we're not worried about the Watcher. We're good. It's a nice house. Nah, rent, buy, nope, Okay, so now what's good old creepo Watcher got to say about this?
In 2 weeks into being there, what do you think happens? Another letter shows up.
You wonder who the Watcher is. Turn around, idiots. Maybe you even spoke to me. One of the so-called neighbors who has no idea who the Watcher could be. Or maybe you do know and are too scared to tell anyone. My soldiers of the Boulevard followed my orders to a T. They carried out their mission and they saved the soul of 657 Boulevard with my orders. All hail the Watcher.
The renter was
Okay.
also mentioned in this letter and was definitely spooked. But they decide that they're still willing to stick around because they knew going in this could happen. They just asked that the Broaddus family install even more cameras. And so they did that, they installed more cameras, and they decided to
All the cameras y'all had ain't done nothing yet.
They are obviously disheartened, but at the same time, now they have more evidence against the Watcher. And so they take this new letter, they bring it to the police, and unfortunately, much like the other few letters they'd received, there was nothing much to go on, except that you have this person claiming to watch them, but no hard evidence to tie it to anybody. So once again, they got nowhere. After renting this house out for a while to this family at a deficit, the Broaddus family in 2019 finally decide to just sell the house at a $400,000 deficit. It was just a huge nightmare, and at this point they were willing to pay $400,000 to get rid of it. Before they sold it, they received one more letter, and this is what it said.
You are despised by the house, and the Watcher won.
Despite the investigation by police and the unofficial investigation by Derek's private investigators, we are not anywhere closer to figuring out who the Watcher is, or what's hidden in the walls. It's all still a huge mystery. Many people have speculated that the Broaddus family, that Derek specifically, was probably the person who wrote the letters, because in fact, he would later admit that he wrote a number of anonymous letters to people in the community that had been bad-mouthing he and his family. But he said it was purely out of frustration. I wanted to scare them and make them, feel what it was like to have the Watcher watching them. But he said, like, this whole situation has really devastated them financially and emotionally, and kind of ruined their ability to stay in the town that they loved so much. So it just, the angle that he stood to benefit from this, it's not a very good theory in my opinion. In addition, recently Netflix bought the rights to their story. But if Derek and his family had said, what we're going to do is we're going to set up this elaborate mystery around ourselves for years in order to secure movie rights, you'd be putting your kids through something so traumatic. And so the idea of like having your kids have to live with the fear of being attacked and getting bullied at school because everybody talks in these communities, that seems far-fetched too. It remains to be seen who the Watcher is, but to this day it remains a mystery. So if you haven't already, please click like and subscribe. I am going to be trying to do 2 or more stories a week. I'm really making a push to make YouTube my primary, so I hope.
Whew. A lot to take in on that one. But the Watcher won in the end. Still ain't figured out who this guy is. And as I'm telling you, if I was somebody who lived on that street before all this went down, I'd be so pissed off about the Watcher ruining the reputation of the street. Me personally, I'd be so mad because, like I said, it used to be popular. It used to be like you could brag about where you stayed at. Don't want to talk about it now. Nope. Street got a bad reputation now. Man, I'd be pissed off. Even with me not being involved, I'd be looking for a new place to live. All right, y'all, that's the end for that one. Tell me what y'all think about this. Leave a comment down below. And leave a like before you go. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. All right, so till next time, take care of yourselves. And I'm out of here.